description of what it is you do and who you work for?
Well, I'll tell you who I am first. I'm PC Nigel Bennett. I'm a local policing officer for Greenlands, which includes Woodrow, Wyatt Hill and the Greenlands estate. Sorry, what is your question? I've gone off the boiler.
Tell us a brief description of what it is you do and who you
Okay.
work for.
Yeah, so I work for West Mercia Police. And West Mercia Police are funded by the community, so anybody that pays taxes pays towards it. My role as a local policing officer is to work within the community at a more local level. So I don't use the blue lights and the sirens that often. My role is to work within the community with partner groups to try and look at long-term problems, long-term issues within any community. That can be generally, or it can be quite specific sometimes.
Okay. When did you start your career as a police officer?
I joined the police force when I was 32 and a half years old, which is quite late to join the police, in 1990. And I've now been doing it 22 years. And on paper, I'm due to retire on age next January, at 55.
Why did you choose this career?
Well, I didn't at first. When I was a young man, I thought about becoming a policeman, fancied it, but I wasn't mature enough. I didn't think I could cope with some of the things that happen on the streets, some of the things I'd attend, bad car crashes, sudden deaths, things like that. I didn't think I was capable of doing it, and it frightened me, so I didn't do it. So I spent many years working for the local authority in a clerical role, then I became a salesman for about 12 years. And I was a salesman in the grocery industry mainly for that period. But then at 32 I thought, yeah, I need a change. I was a lot more mature, and it sounds really silly, but it's a job. Not liked by a lot of people, but it's a job that you can make a difference in people's lives, hopefully a positive one.
Tell us some challenges you've had to face in your career.
Oh, dear me. I've done many varied roles. I've done general policing, where I was first on the scene at 2 murders. So I've dealt with that. I've tried to give first aid to people who've been stabbed in the heart, which is a bit gruesome, but it proves I've got over my fear of that. I've been a dog handler. I've searched at murder scenes. I've also, through my dog work, done explosives work, so I've searched for bombs. Not we've had to do that very often, but it's used more protective. So when members of government, royalty, or very important people all get together, the bomb dogs do a clearance to make sure they're safe. So I worked at the G8 summit in Scotland for a week or so, just making sure when Mr. Blair and I can't remember the president was, I think it was Mr. Bush, were from America, were all in there, and I worked at the airport there clearing it to make sure there was no bombs, threats, things like that. So that's quite exciting, yeah.
What qualifications did you need to get to become a police officer?
Well, because I joined with age, rather than I got into the police force on my life experience. If somebody's going to come out and deal with you as a police officer, I think most people find it more comfortable if the person they're talking to has a bit of life experience. And although you can join from about 19 technically, it's a bit difficult to be mature and walk into people's houses and deal with some of their personal problems without that. But I think qualification wise, they want good education qualifications. I'm thinking GCSEs, A-level, plus some life experience. So if you've worked in a community, worked in a job, there's lots of different things. The police force is hundreds of jobs all under one banner, and lots of different skills. But yeah, I don't know what the actual prerequisite qualifications are. There are people who join their job with degrees, people like older people like me who haven't got a lot of paper qualifications. But I think they do want paper qualifications these days. I think myself, I'd got a couple of A-level equivalent qualifications when I joined, although I couldn't find the certificates because they were that out of date. But yeah, so I joined on life experience. but by and large, if people starting now would be on their education to a degree, and their life experience is very important.
Whereabouts in the area do you work?
Yeah, as I pointed out at the start, I work in Woodrow Greenlands, so I've been based pretty much at Redditch for most of my career. When I was on the Dogs, I was based at headquarters, but pretty well worked at Redditch as well as the whole force sometimes. But yeah, my area of work is centred from Woodrow, Greenlands and Wyhill. That's the area that I locally police.
Do you think you've made a difference in your local area?
As I suspect you need to ask other people that. I would hope so. It's difficult to measure, but one would hope sometimes a small decision I might make, or a few bits of information I might pass, or bits of advice I give to people, might have a long-term impact in their lives. Yeah, I can't say that I've built a bridge or I've invented something totally new, but one would hope in my dealings with people over the years, 20 odd years I've been in the job, I'd like to think I've made a bit of a difference. Certainly I can think of 2 occasions where I've saved somebody's life, because they would have died if we hadn't. And yes, that's nice, I suppose, and not many people that can say that in a job.
Who do you work closely with?
Well, obviously other policemen and CSOs, community support officers, but in my role very much with partner groups. Any idea what they might be? Okay. Within any community there are lots of different organisations that work and we all try to get together. For instance, the library where we're sitting now, I work closely with Steph. The lady we just kicked out of here, Maureen from Watching Point, which is the local youth group on there, work with them. I work with the council, the anti-social behaviour team. I work with local councillors. Anybody that's got an interest in this community. Most important, of course, it's with the people who live in it, is where we try to work with. But yeah, that's what we try to do.
Do you think the community is important?
It's hugely important. It really is hugely important. When I was young, long time ago, and before that even more so, but when I was there, we lived in communities as such where you knew all the people in your road. I don't know whether you live in big long roads or whatever, but it's very rare these days that anybody knows everybody in their road, because as a community we all have our own ideas of what we want to do. We tend to keep to ourselves a bit more. But in Woodrow and Greenlands generally, when I came to this job, I found it very frustrating that the perception of anybody that lives around here from other people outside, they think it's a horrible place to live. They think everybody down here are criminals or horrible people, and it isn't true. And sometimes even the people who live on the estate rubbish their own abilities and perceptions of who they are. And I think we've proved with a couple of things in here that once the community get together, it's a very powerful thing, you know, and it's so important that everybody tries to support everybody else. Yeah, you don't want to live in people's back gardens or tell them what to do in their lives, but just supporting people is so important, and the community can do that in a huge way.
Finally, congratulations on the award you won. Can you tell us what you did to win it and what it meant to you?
Right, well, it's a bit old now, but a couple of years ago I was the local policing officer of the year for North Worcestershire. It meant a lot to me. I joined local policing virtually by being persuaded from one of my senior management, and I didn't think it was something that I particularly like. But I very much enjoyed it, particularly working in this area. I wouldn't like to work everywhere in Redditch, but I really like working in this area. And it was seen by my bosses that I'd done a reasonably good job, in fairness they did say a very good job, in trying to help the community, bring a few things into the community that weren't there before, and they're outside now. And if you look outside now, that I've had a part in, the planters, with other agencies. The Christmas tree, been there for 4 years now, that was my idea. We now have a carol concert every year. And people couldn't believe that could happen in Woodrow. They thought it would be trashed, burnt down, treated badly, but it hasn't been. And that's fantastic to show there is a community here that can work together. And that was recognised by my bosses, which I was grateful for. I had a fantastic evening out. I took my wife and my 2 children to the presentation, and it was a big thing for us. Yeah, it's very nice in this world when somebody gently pats you on the head and says, well done. I think, do you find that? Yeah. It's nice, isn't it? And it's lovely when people do that. Yeah, there are, for me, there are also another 40, 50, 60 policemen even around here that do an excellent job. Sometimes you just got to be lucky enough to be in a role where you can be seen to be doing it. So I was very lucky to get it. But yes, it was an honour. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. And now I say your questions were brilliant, well worked out, and thank you very much indeed for interviewing me.